Hello simmers and welcome in the skies over Thailand. We departed Amsterdam roughly 10 and a half, 11 hours ago. And we are still 630 miles out of Singapore. So we're well on our way, we made good progress. And I think it's a good time now to start looking into the waypoints for the star, for the arrival procedure, and see what else we have to do in the flight management system to set up a landing. So a little bit early on in the maybe, but it gives us a bit more time to look into stuff. So let's just first take a look at the standard arrival route. See what waypoints are in there. We have Arama, Bobak, where we have to be at or above 10,000 feet. Samko, Batam, where we have to be at or above 7,000 feet. Doven at or above 4,000 feet. And Baipop at or above 3,000 feet. So let's take a look at the flight management system, see if these waypoints are in there with the correct constraints. So we have to move down a little bit. The top of descent is calculated. So here we have Arama. And there's no constraint there, only that it is 250 knots. And that is not correct in here. So what you do is you select Arama and you go to the constraints option. And here you can set a number of constraints, either altitude, speed or something else, but it's going to be a speed constraint. And I'm now in the wrong waypoint judging by the looks of it, because it's saying Bobach and I can't select Arama. So we'll just return to the list. Select Arama, go to constraints. It's a descent constraint. 250 below 10,000 feet, that is correct anyway. Let's return, let's see if we can do it by Topor. If I go there and I select constraints, then it's constrained at Arama. We want to be at 250 knots. And now you can see Arama 251. This column is the speed. Bobach 220. At 19,700 feet, we have to be at or above 10,000. So let's verify the constraint. Somehow you have to enter this in the waypoint before, so I have to select Arama, press constraint, and then I can enter the constraint for Bobo. No, I'm mistaken here. Let's return. So Bobo, constraint, altitude constraint. At Bobach, I have to be at or above 10,000 feet. So return. At Samko, we had to be. At or above 7,000 feet. Oh no, wrong. That's at Bay 10. Somehow the delete alt constraint option is not working, but at or above 7,000 should be alright. Because if I return and we go to the Baytemp VOR, I can still set my constraints. It says at or above 3,000 feet in here. It should be at or above, let's say that I want to be there at 7,000. No, that's, I don't want bebop, I want BTN. But I want to be at 7,000 feet. So now we have a hard constraint of 7,000 in here, 11,000 at Semco, 17,000 at Bobach and 26,300 at Arama. Now when we look at Dovan, we have to be at or above 4,000 feet. So again, constraints, altitude, select Dovan in the list. At or above 4,000, that is correct. And then BiPop, we have to be at or above 3,000. So BiPop, constraints, altitude. And we have to be at or above 3,000 feet. So now that we have the star waypoints in here, the speeds, BiPop has to be at 190. Let's check that as well. .190 knots at BiPop in the descent constraint, so that is set correctly. So 178 even down there. Let's take a look at the final approach chart for runway. I thought it was 20 right, yes. We start at Igula 3500 or ITFAS at 2500 and Idiru at 1500 feet. So let's see which waypoints are in here. We have ITFAS and Idiru. ITFAS at 2500. That is correct with the chart. And Idiru at around 1490, 1500, that's about the same thing. So that's also alright. So the lateral and vertical profile in the flight management system is now set and the speeds are also in there correctly. So we have verified the arrival route. So let's check the nav radio. It has to be at 108.9 with a course of 203 for the ILS. So landing system, we got to change that 108.9. And the forward course will be 203. But I cannot enter that in here. I think that will be done automatically, but we have to check that later on in the flight. Well, we have to verify the frequency for the ILS when we get closer to the airport. It can be that this is an automated system. Anyway, the flight plan is done, so let's take a look at the performance page. In the descent, we want to have the economy speed of 290, so that's fine. Transition altitudes in Singapore is 11,000 feet. So that is now set. And for the approach, ILS 20 right. All these data we still have to insert when we get closer, when we will get the ATIS. Then we have to fill in all the data on this page. For now, since it's we are, I think, more than an hour. Yeah, it's 536 miles to fly with a ground speed of 468. So it's well over an hour, so there's no point in inserting the data already. There can still be a lot of change in the weather in, let's say, 1.5 hours. So for now we'll just stick to this. And we get back to this when we are in the descent for Singapore. So that's the, as far as the performance is concerned, what we can do for the go-around. Thrust reduction and acceleration at 1500 feet. Transition altitude is 11,000 feet. That's fine. Don't think we will change that. So let's take a look at the fuel that we have on board. Still have 25,700 kilos, equally distributed over the tanks. There's only a 20 kilo difference between left and right, which is well, it's good. That won't cause any problems for us. Now, by the way, the ECAM is auto if there is no green light on any of the knobs in here. As soon as you press a knob, there will be a green light above it, and that will also be the indication that the system is on manual mode and not any longer on the automated mode. As you can see, the temperature is 22 degrees, and in order to keep the steward quiet, you have to have a temperature between 20 and 22 degrees. If it's higher or if it's lower, then you will keep constant dings from the cabin with the purser starting to complain about a lot of stuff. And he's quite annoying. If you find him annoying and you don't want to bother about that stuff, just press the button a lot of times in a row and that will basically kill him. But, well, I think that's a bit drastic. and besides managing the cabin and making sure that the passengers have a nice environment is actually very important. Well, somehow the data that remained visible on the screen has gone overnight, so that's a good thing. This is what it should look like. And anyway, let's give the passengers another light meal before we land in Singapore. It's roughly lunchtime, a little bit later in the local time, so...
Ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments, the flight attendants will be passing around the cabin to offer you cold drinks, as well as a light meal. Please make sure your seats are in an upright position, and prepare your folding trays.
And what we can do is we can set the cabin lights back to this brightness. I couldn't find a performance calculator for landing data, only for takeoff performance, so well, that might be something for a future update if there will be any. And also what I couldn't find was the option to brake to vacate. Let's see. I think that is a little bit too complex to program into a desktop simulator, but it would be awesome if they had it. But I can't find it anywhere, not in performance. Or maybe we might have missed something. That's the approach. Full flap landing. So as you can see, most of the flows that you have to work through are actually the same as in an A320 or an A319. It's just that all the input fields are different. I think they made a really nice simulation of all the touch screens in this airplane. I really enjoy finding my way and really have to look into stuff. It's not something that you just load in and start flying immediately. You really have to know where you have to put stuff, and that involves reading a manual, check online fits, whatever. And if you like to read the manual, the user's guide is in here. So there's a lot of information about the various systems. So if you go for your first flight, program a longer flight, and that will give you plenty of time to read through all this. I haven't done it right now, because from the 11 hours that we are busy right now, I have slept 7.5 or 8 hours. But anyway, know that it is in here. So user's guide, this will give you a lot of information on the various systems in the airplane. You can just walk through it with this. And if you want to go to a different chapter, just go to that one. Let's see, maybe here's something about brake to vacate. Doesn't really look like it. Maybe at gear. Oh, the auto brake, which includes the brake to vacate function, so it should be modeled. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see how we have to set that one up. Let's see, no. The only downside is that some of the text seems to be missing. And with the arrows, I cannot get the page to slide and it looks like the top of the page is too low on the display, so there's information missing here. But since it has to be there, let's just figure out if we have a separate document in the aircrafts folder. This looks alright, and we should be on page 185. Includes brake to vacate. The system has 5 braking modes: normal, alternate, emergency, ultimate, park and brake. Well, that's nice, but this is strange. I can't find this panel in my flight deck, because it should be... It's usually close to this one. Well, let's play around a little bit. We have the runway condition and the braking action. Brake low, brake 2, 3, 4 or high. Don't shoot me, but I can't find it. Because this used to be the braking panel. And the gauge that they display here in the manual is not on my cockpit display here, because in here you do have the option BTV, brake to vacate. It's in the manual, but it doesn't appear to be in the flight deck itself. That's strange. And it's also strange that the gauges or the knobs are different in the cockpit from what they look like in the manual. But they really are not there, because this is the place where they should be. Or are they on the first officer side, hidden behind? No. Could we have an option for our brake display? So let's go to the options then. Let's see, time flow, real, difficulty level, real, structural limits, real, hectopascals, ILS, auto align, custom flushing, auto pause is off, FCU new style, MFD control touchscreen, reverse mode, regular, mouse wheels manipulator, auto helper is off, screens glow. Doesn't add too much to me. Explain window. Well, there is, by the way, an option to jump to the next waypoint, so if you don't want to sit out the entire flight, you can just jump around the flight plan. We're not going to do that. But there's no option here to change the display of the brake gauges in the flight deck. So we'll just have to live with this. Anyway, let's take a look at the flight plan. We are still 5 to 6 minutes out. So 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. Let's say it's roughly 45 minutes until we reach our top of descent. So what I'll do is I'll skip the video here and I will be back with you guys as soon as we are reaching the top of descent to get an ATIS, fill in the final data in the flight management system and start the descent. So I see you in a bit. So here we are again. We've just passed Kuala Lumpur. That's the major airport that you saw down there. And down there, I mean, well, you can't see it anymore, but in here, that's Kuala Lumpur International Airport. And we are roughly 40 miles away from our top of descent. So I think it's a good time to start listening to an ATIS. Insert the final details in the performance page and then start to initialize our descent. So first thing I have to do is select this one. It goes to standby and then you can enter the frequency. It's 122.025. That's the frequency for the active Sky XP ATIS for your arrival airport. So let's switch it.
Whiskey, Sierra, 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 airport information, Foxtrot 0630, Zulu, weather, wind 170 at 6, visibility 10,000, sky condition, few clouds at 2,000, temperature 31, dew point 23, QNH 1008, advise on initial contact, you have information, Foxtrot.
Alright, information Foxtrot is on board. The wind
Whiskey.
170 at 6. Let's just take a quick look at the chart. So 170 at 6 then means that we will still land on runway 20 with a slight crosswind from the left, 6 knots. The visibility is clear, 10,000 feet with few clouds at 2,000 feet, which means that there is a possibility that when we turn in on the localizer there might still be clouds below us which obscure the view on the runway. Temperature is 31 degrees and the QNH is 1008. So let's go to the flight management system, switch from active to performance, select the approach tab and here we can enter the data. So it's 170 at 006 knots. Outside air temperature is 31 degrees and the QNH is 1008 hectopascals. Let's take a look at the chart for our minimums. Basically what it says, if it's only localizer, it's 407 minimum descent altitude. Decision altitude, if you fly a missed approach with a climb gradient of 2.5%, it's 680. And if you fly a missed approach with a climb gradient of 3.7%, it's 200 feet. I'm not really sure how this airplane behaves on go-around with the current weights. It's not extremely heavy anymore. But just to be on the safe side, I will go for the 2.5 climb gradient. At least we will be safe in any case. So it's 680. And let's make that radio. Because it will be 693 barometric, so that would mean that the airport is 13 feet, well it's 22 feet. Let's just stick to 680 feet radio. Transition altitude 11,000 was already entered. Full flaps landing, giving us a landing speed of 138 knots and an approach speed of 143 knots. Given the fact that we have a 3 knot crosswind compensation, I think we should be alright with 5 knots above the landing speed. So I'm not gonna do anything about that, and this seems to be alright as well. So that is the performance data now entered in the flight plan. Let's make the before descent announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we start our descent, please make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright position. Make sure your seat belt is securely fastened, and all carry-on luggage is stowed underneath the seat in front of you, or in the overhead bins. Please turn off all electronic devices, until we are safely parked at the gate. We hope that you found our flight enjoyable. We would like to remind you that cushions and blankets are to be left in your seats. Thank you.
Alright, so with him being finished, let's go to the descent preparation checklist. So the weather was obtained. Landing electrics is set, barrow reference is preset, ecam status and memo is checked, approach data is inserted, position navigate page that was checked, secondary page as required, auto brakes. Let's set that one to 2. And NTIs is also set as required, so that's the descent preparation checklist completed. And after we start the descent, we will do the descent checklist. For now, let's just wait a little bit and then initialize a descent, and let's descend first to 10,000 feet. So let me just wind this one down to 10,000. Descent is initialized. There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to remind you that use of all electronic devices during descent and landing is prohibited, as it may interfere with the navigational equipment. Thank you.
Let's just switch the engine NTIs on during the descent. There's quite some clouds in the area, and the temperature is minus 21. It will take us some time to reach it, but with the engines not running on full power, I think it's always smart to switch on the NTIs, for the engines at least. So what we can see this field is that the star is very nicely programmed. We already checked all the entries and constraints, and it all matches with what we see on the chart, so that's always a good thing. So for the missed approach, we have to climb straight ahead at to 5,000 feet. Once we cross the Sierra Juliet radial 146, we are in the Semco holding area, and we should hold as directed by ATC. SJ is the St. John beacon, VOR. So as you can see here, it's 113.5, which corresponds, and at 168. So we'll just fly here till we reach this one, and here is that holding area. We expect a normal ILS approach, transitioning at 11,000 feet to the local barometric altitude, barometric setting to 1008. We're not there yet. So let's take a look at the descent checklist. So descent monitor, rate of descent is as required. Speed brakes, we can arm the speed brakes. The weather on EVIS, that's as required, and the holding pattern is also checked. And once we are at 10,000 feet, we have to run the 10,000 feet checklist. That's gonna take us well, roughly 8 minutes. Now we start to slow down to 250 knots. I've downloaded some freeware scenery for Singapore Airport and the Singapore city, and I've created some ortho tiles for the immediate surroundings of the city. I think. No, it's not. But we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like. Anyways, this is all set. I will switch back to the flight plan so I cannot mess up any entries in the performance page. And we have a good view of what is yet to come. It's 126 nautical miles to fly. If you were to fly in a straight line, it would be 60, but there's not enough time to descend, so we'll just stick to the flight plan. It wants to be at 260 at Arama and then at 170 at Bobach, so I expect to see an increase in the rate of descent as soon as we make the turn over Arama. We're now at 600 feet per minute. We are still slowing down to 250 knots. It's meeting that constraint quite nice, judging by the looks of it right now. Here we are, 250 knots. Diving below that, increasing the rate of descent to keep the speed at 250, passing Arama at 26,000 feet, just as is set in the flight management system. So let's see if it will meet the 170 at 220 knot constraint over at Bobach. Yes, we now have that increase in the rate of descent, speed 250, and at the magenta dot before Bobach, that is the deceleration point. Now it's set to take 7 minutes to reach Bobach. We need to lose 9,000 feet. So with this vertical speed of roughly 1500 feet per minute, we should be alright. So let's just wait and see. I just noticed I made a mistake. I thought the times was the time it would take to reach the next waypoint, but it's the time at which you reach the next waypoint. So from Samco to BTM, that's 4 minutes. It's not 7 minutes. So I made a mistake during the earlier stage in this video where I was saying it would take roughly 45 minutes before we would reach the top of descent. It's not, that wasn't the case. So anyway, like I said, it's one of the first flight with the updated A350, and the last flight before this was a couple of weeks ago. So it's a little bit of getting used to again. But we're all here to learn. And you learn on the job. We are a little bit slower, but then again we have to reduce the speed to 220 once we reach Bobach, so I'm not too worried about that right now. Every 10 knots that we don't have to lose on this small stretch helps us to meet the constraint over at Bobach. So let's just wait and see. So far so good. And there we have what looks like the port of Singapore. Still too far out to see any 3D objects, but we're getting close. Almost 12 hours into the flights. So Bobach in 11 miles, that's a little like 2 minutes with 1200 feet per minute, so we should be able to lose 2,400 feet. So we should be able to meet that constraint of 17,000 feet. Or the constraint, the target of 17,000 feet over at Bobach, which keeps us nice on schedule to meet the constraint over at Bravo Tango Mike of 7,000 feet. Feet to go. And here we have that nice vertical profile as well in the nav display. The nose is being raised, so that means that we will start to slow down now. Let's see, the constraint says 220 knots. Let's see if it will do that. Yes, there it goes, 1.7 miles out, and start to reduce further to 220, making the left turn over Bobach at 17,200, passing over, so that's also correct. So the flight management system is quite precise, and it will meet the constraints that are programmed into that one. That's a good thing. Now, since we are descending to 10,000 feet, because it's not flight level 100, because it's below the transition altitude of 110, I will already set the QNH 1008 in here. We have to be at 11,000 at Samco. That should be doable. Not really sure why I have the solid green line up here and then the dashed green line in here, because we basically should follow the dashed green line, so I don't know why that isn't solid. Doesn't seem like it's a too steep path. Certainly didn't get any warnings for that. So I'm quite anxious to see what will happen after Samco, so we have to keep a close eye on that. And let's say that we are clear to descend to 7,000 feet. Ah, that's it. The constraint was the altitude target in the altitude window was set to 10,000. So you get a solid green line that displays until where you are cleared to descend according to the MCP, or the mode control panel. I can't recall the correct Airbus name for it. But as soon as you set it to the next altitude, then you will get a solid green line for that altitude. So over at Dauphin we should be there. So let's say that we are clear to descend to 4,000 feet. That should have us okay until we are at Bipop, which is down there, and then we'll select 2,500 in there. There we have Singapore. That's the freeware package that I downloaded from the forums over at explain.org. With the landmarks of Singapore. Here's the port, one of the busiest ports, at least in Asia, I thought. Some of the landmark buildings for the Singapore skyline. And here in the distance is Singapore Changi Airport, where we will land on runway 20 right. So we are at 11,000 feet. The transition altitude, we are already on QNH 1008. On both the primary flight displays and the standby instruments, so that is checked. And with 10,000 feet coming up, we have to engage the landing lights pretty soon. We are at 14 degrees Celsius, so we can switch off the engine NTIs now. And since we are flying 220 knots, we already met the constraint of maximum 250 below 10,000 feet. So 10,000 feet, landing lights on, and let's run the 10,000 feet checklist in the descent checklist. Exterior lights set, seatbelts on, FLS data was checked, barrel reference is set. So that's the 10,000 feet checklist completed. Now what we also have to do is verify in the nav radio that the course for the ILS is now set correctly. So it's 108.9 at 157. And it should be 203. Really sure is there anything else where I can adjust the course. No, in an Airbus you have to do that in the flight management system. We have to keep a close eye on this one. It has identified it as a Cat 1 MLE, so that's the wrong one. We need to have the India Charlie Hotel identified, so we have to check that this will change. And that the course will be 203. So I'll just leave this one in here for now, so we can keep a close eye on that. And as soon as we reach BiPOP, we will make the before landing announcement. So that's the constraint, 7,000 feet over at Bravo Tango Mike. We have met that one. And the next one is Dovan. So we'll descend to that one. It's just below 7,000. And let's say that we are clear to descend to 2,500. That should have us fine until we reach the ILS. So once we reach BiPOP, we will make the before landing announcement. We engage the landing system. Make sure that we will descend on the ILS. So I want 11350 on VOR2 with the cores of 168. Excuse me, 146. So I can tune this one to 108.9. Doesn't take that one. We'll just have to wait and see whether it does that automatically. Anyway, we are now over Dovan, commencing our descent. And we should reduce our speed to 190 at the magenta marker down there. So that means that we'll have to set flaps 1 as soon as we hit that magenta dot before the BiPAP waypoint. Then we'll continue to decelerate, so we have to start applying the flaps. So we should start to decelerate as soon as we hit this magenta dot, and it should go to 190. And as soon as we start to reach 200, I will set flaps 1. So here we are, the marker goes to 190, the nose is being raised, speed is decreasing. So speed checked, flaps 1. And let's make that before landing announcements.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a few minutes our aircraft will land at the destination airport. For your safety, we ask you to remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop and the fasten seatbelt sign is turned off. When preparing to depart, please make sure to take all your personal belongings with you. Attention international travelers, if you are continuing your flight, follow the signs to international transit area.
Speed checked, flaps 2. It's now saying India Charlie Hotel. That is correct. What I don't like is the course. That is not correct. So I'm quite anxious to see what it looks like right now. In here it is set correctly, so that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the flight plan page. Make a last check on the performance. It is still 143 on the approach. Engage the landing system. And engage the approach mode, or arm the approach mode. So ILS is identified. We are below the glide slope. Speed checked, flaps 3. Localizer green, glide slope green. Select landing gear down and full flaps. Glide slope is captured. Glide slope is green. Set the missed approach altitude to 5,000 feet. That is set. So let's go for the checklists. Final approach checks, FMA is checked, flaps 1, TCAS.
2000.
Auto brakes confirmed, ECAM, wheel page, flight parameters are checked. So final approach checklist is completed. Runway is in sight. Let's set the runway turn-off lights on and the nose gear light to on. And here we are approaching Singapore. All the ships in the harbor. The skyline in the distance. Anyway, let's see if we can land this thing manually. So let's disengage the autopilot and the auto throttle. I'm missing the lights in these two. But anyway.
$1,000.
Check 1,000 feet stabilized, missed approach altitude set.
$100 above.
Approaching 20
Minimum.
right.
Continue landing. 20 right is verified and correct. 12 knot crosswind from the left.
$500.
Check.
$400. $300.
Very responsive to the side stick, so small inputs.
$200. $100, 90, 80, 70, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 10, 20, 30, 20, 10.
So reverse.
5,000 feet remaining.
And manual braking. Reverse is on idle.
3,000 remaining.
Alright, so flaps retracted.
2,000 remaining.
Spoilers disarmed. Let's set the APU master on. And start the APU. And we'll just roll out to the end of the runway, vacate here, and then we are very close to the gates. 27 knots. Let's slow down a little bit further. And vacate the runway. So after landing announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you at our destination. The local weather is hot and rainy, 31 degrees centigrade. The local time is 3:30 p.m. For your safety and comfort, we ask that you please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign. This will indicate that we have parked at the gate.
Let's see, where do we have clear gates? Well, let's make it easy on ourselves and park down there.
Please remain in your seat until all other passengers have departed. One of our crew members will then be pleased to assist you.
Set the brake
We
fan
remind
on
you to wait until inside the terminal to use any electronic
to reduce
devices
the
or to
temperature on
smoke
the
in
wheel
designated
brakes.
areas. On behalf of our airline and the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for joining us on this trip, and we are looking forward to seeing you on board again in the near future. Have a nice day.
So let's make a goodbye announcement from the captain.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed your...
So anyway, the landing system can be switched off. Flight director can be switched off. Let's switch off the taxi and runway turn-off lights to not blind the marshaller, and let's park in this gate. I was actually quite surprised that there wasn't any high-quality payware add-ons for Singapore in X-Plane 11. I mean, Singapore is quite an important busy airport in Southeast Asia. So all I could find was this freeware airport, which is okay-ish, but not up to the standards what is possible nowadays in X-Plane. Somehow there's something wrong with my hardware setup concerning the reverse. So parking brake set. Let's take a look at the landing from the outside. So toggle replay mode. There we are. Flight took us 12 hours 16 minutes. So that's 2 minutes shorter than anticipated, so we are nicely on schedule. does seem to be some problem with the mesh for this part of runway 20 right. Well, a lot of practice for me ahead with this airplane. But I think in terms of systems detail, 3D modeling, and now with the working airway sits and stars, this is a really nice add-on for long-haul flights in X-Plane 11. I can recommend it wholeheartedly. It's study level. You have to really look into and get familiarized with the flight deck and the systems. Basically, it is largely the same as an A320 or A319 in terms of the actions that you have to take. It's just that it's all on completely different places, and you really have to get familiarized with the with the flight deck, everything that's in there. So let's say doors to manual.
Attention all flight attendants, doors to manual.
So let's set ground surfaces. I want ground power units, I want a high pressure unit, chocks, plane at the gate, cleaning truck, ULD train, air conditioning, a luggage loader. A fuel truck is not required just yet.
Sir, if I may say so, it seems to be a dash cold in the cabin.
Cold in the cabin? It's 24 degrees, stop whining. Anyway, engine 2 can be switched off. Engine 1 can be switched off. We have the external power on. APU generator can be switched off. APU bleed can be switched off. The probe and window heat, the APU master. With the engines off, the beacon light can be switched off. We are on ground power, so the nav lights remain on. We will switch the logo lights off. Exterior lights are off. Seatbelt signs off. Emergency lights off. And we can disengage the fuel pumps. So let's go to doors and hatches. Let's say that we are well, let's call some stairs. Let's see where they are. The first two doors. So let's open door 1 and 2 lifts. And that concludes our flight with the Flight Factor A350. As mentioned, very nice add-on. Now recommended wholeheartedly with the working sits and stars. If you already purchased it in the past, just install it from the .org store, and then you have to run the updater for the select the beta. And then when you install that one, you have version 1.6.8, and that will have the sit star functionality in the flight management system. I like the add-on. I think we finally have a good study level long haul airliner for X-Plane 11. So that's it for me. If you saw me make any mistakes, please point them out of me in the comment section. I'm not a professional pilot, so there's a lot for me to learn as well. Hope you liked the video. Until the next one, please stay safe and stay healthy, and I see you next time. Bye bye.